Welcome back, everyone, to Global War 1914, Operation Albatross. This is the fall-winter of 1916 for Germany. And before we get into Germany's turn, I've been going back and forth debating with myself regarding the rule about first strikes and how it pertains to, say, like damaged dreadnoughts. Does their attack or defense value get reduced in the same combat round that they suffered the first strike hit? Same thing with trench lines. Let's say during a first strike, you are able to destroy your enemy's units down below the threshold needed to maintain a trench line. Does that trench line immediately go away, or does it have to wait until the next round of combat to apply? And so I can show you guys the rule book here. This is for trench lines. And originally, when I read this, I was thinking that the trench line doesn't disappear until after that particular combat round. So trench lines can be formed and disappear at the end of any combat round, depending on the number of infantry and the number of tanks present. So the assumption here is that even if a first strike happens, because if you go back a couple of pages, there's first strike. On the first round of combat, units with first strike roll before other units, and those casualties are immediately removed without a defensive roll. If units on both sides have first strikes, those units fire at the same time. So it doesn't really say anything about trench lines with first strike. So I was assuming that even if you have first strike hits on a trench line and you are able to destroy enough infantry to get those units below the threshold for a trench line, to maintain that trench line, that wouldn't take into effect until the next combat round. But logically, that doesn't make sense. And attacking in this game is hard enough as it is. And so I think the way that we're going to play going forward, and this hasn't really impacted the game too significantly to this point, but I think that, the way that we're going to play going forward and in future playthroughs, and this is the way that I've played in the 36 game. I mean, there's no trench lines in the 36 game, but the overall same concept, the same idea is that first strikes get applied immediately. And so should the effects of those first strikes, logically thinking. So, we're going to play where if artillery first strikes are able to destroy a trench line in any round of combat, that trench line immediately gets removed within that same combat round, and those infantry have to go down and defend at a 4 instead of a 6. So, and likewise, with, let's say on the United States turn, this Brazilian dreadnought got damaged by a first strike from the port here in Buenos Aires. Likewise, this dreadnought should be attacking when it's his turn to go, which is after the first strike takes place. That dreadnought should be attacking at a 7 instead of an 8. And also, of course, this impacts paired infantry with artillery. So let's say that you have an infantry or even a cavalry that's paired with an artillery, and that infantry or cavalry is boosted by an extra attack value. But the enemy has first strike with their artillery, and you elect to take an artillery as a casualty. Well, the unit that is paired with that artillery no longer has that pairing ability, and that occurs within that round of combat. So that's the way that we're going to play, and so that infantry or that cavalry would then be back down to a 2 or a 3 when he goes to roll on his attack turn. So I think that's the way we're going to play. I think that logically that makes the most sense. And we'll apply that here going forward. All right, let's get into Germany. For our purchases, now this might change because we're going to go for mustard gas on technology, and if we hit on mustard gas, we're going to upgrade this. But we're going to get phosgene gas for 2. We're going to move up a fortification to stage 2 for $2. We're going to purchase 2 trench fighters for 4, a Jaeger for 4, 7, let's see, 5, 6, 8 infantry for 24, and then 2 artillery for 10. For technology, like I mentioned, we're going to go and try to complete poison gas and get the last stage there. That's mustard gas. And then we're going to go for improved construction, and I think we have one more that we can try to go for. Improved factories, that's right. Improved factories on the board there. Okay. All right, gas will be in the green, factories in the black, and then we'll go construction in the brown. All right, well, the only one that we hit on is factories. So we move up to stage 1 for that. And so we'll keep the Foskin gas that we purchased there originally. Okay. For combat moves, we've already completed our mandatory offensive, and we're kind of in a spot of bother here. Even in the Western Front now at this point, I think the Western Front is probably at a stalemate. It's going to be really difficult for us. I think it's going to be even more difficult for us to go on the offensive against the Entente here on the Western Front than it is for the Entente to go on the offensive against us. Now, our big saving grace is that we have the Rhine River here, and they would have to cross that, of course, take a penalty. Now, let's talk about Belgium. I think we're going to have to retreat out of Belgium entirely because the British are just going to attack us. We only have 1 infantry. We can reinforce it with guys here. The problem is, you might say, well, why don't you rail some guys to Belgium? Well, we don't have a rail connection to Belgium. The rail connection goes to the Netherlands and then comes down to Belgium. There's not a direct rail connection between Belgium and Western Germany. So, and so what we're going to have to do, I think, is retreat this infantry and then reinforce Western Germany while also trying to reinforce Bavaria. In the east here, it's not looking any better. So we're just going to try and reinforce guys here in Eastern Germany and Saxony, and then hope for the revolution. We start rolling for the Russian Revolution next turn. So, if we get lucky, the Russian Revolution can trigger, and then we can redirect all those forces back to the west, and that will help us out tremendously. Okay. But for combat moves, we really don't have any aside from, let's see if I want to do some, we'll do some attrition attacks. We got 2 artillery here in East Germany. We'll do attrition attacks into East Prussia. And the French do have counter battery fire. They've got 5 artillery in Lorraine. In Bavaria, we have 4 artillery. So I don't think we are going to risk anything with that. So we'll just do the 2 attrition attacks there. And then we do have some convoy raiding to do. Let's see here. Only 2 seaplanes can come after us. This guy here and this guy here. This guy both of them on the British turn. So I think we'll risk it though. We'll go for this line here, and then we'll go for this line here again. All right. Oh yeah, and let's try to sink that coastal submarine there in the Baltic Sea with our seaplane, and we'll roll for that first. All right, need a 3 or less, and that's a miss with a 9. Okay. Here's our 2 attrition attacks into East Prussia, and both misses there. Now for our convoy rating, we have, here's our first submarine that's on that British-American line there in the North Atlantic. we get +2, and the British still don't have depth charges and hydrophones. They don't have any ships on escort duty, so they don't get any bonus. Oh, wow, that's a lot of damage. We might have maxed the line out. That's 8-1. That's 7 points of damage. Yeah, the maximum there for the British is 5. The Americans also have value on that line, but they're not in the war yet, so unfortunately it doesn't count for them quite yet. All right, so 5 points of damage. Okay, and then here's the first submarine that's a little bit further to the south off of, well, close to the Bay of Biscay there near Spain and France. All right, so that's 2 points of damage there. And here's the second submarine. And that's, wow, okay, I think we maxed out that line probably. That's another 7 points of damage. So that's a total of 9. Unfortunately, only the British have points on that line, and it's a maximum of 6. So the French don't have anything. So, hey, I'll take it though. I mean, that's 11 IPP total. That it will be taken off of the out of the British bank on their turn next. Okay. We have to roll for the Q-ship defense, which they get against our submarines. So let's go for the first 2 subs that are off of the Canadian Maritimes over there. No luck. The British need a 1 here to hit. And then here's the other 2 submarines there. Off of Spain. And no luck there either. Okay. Oops. I'm dropping dice. All right. I think that's it for combat. Let's go to non-combat. And even here, we don't really have a whole lot. Let's see. I think we're going to keep our 2 artillery here. We are going to move this infantry back to Western Germany. Of course, we won't collect the IPP for Belgium as a result of that. Just gotta double check and see if I want to move anybody. I don't think I do. I can always place down new artillery in Bavaria. I think having the artillery in Bavaria this turn is going to benefit us more. So let's do that, along with the trench fighter. So those guys will move into Bavaria. That will give us a total of 6 artillery in Bavaria and 2 trench fighters. And then I think we're also going to non-combat move these cavalry to the east. I think we're going to place them into Eastern Germany. 1 artillery we are going to place into Saxony. We're going to non-combat move into Saxony. And I think that will be it. Okay, let's place some units. course, our fortification goes to stage 2. Our Jaeger will get placed down into Bavaria. That will give us 3 in Bavaria. Phosgene gas will get placed down into Bavaria and attached to the artillery that's there. We're going to add 1 artillery. We have 2 artillery to place. One's going to go into Eastern Germany. And the other one will go into Bavaria. So now we have 7 artillery in Bavaria. Got a couple of trench fighters. Let's see. What do we want to do with that? One is going to go into Eastern Germany. And the other, let's place him into Bavaria. All right, so we have 2 more slots left in Bavaria for infantry class units. And we have a total of 8 infantry to place down. So those 2 extra infantry, 2 of the infantry will go into Bavaria. Well, no, we can't do 2. We can only do 1 because we placed down a Jaeger. All right, so that brings infantry total to 7 in Bavaria. Western Germany will get 3 infantry. So we will have 4 left to place down. Oops. Okay. I think we only have 1 slot left in Eastern Germany. Yeah, because we placed down a trench fighter there. So 1 infantry will go into East Germany. Three left to put down. 1 will go into Saxony. Two left to put down, and I think, let's see, so that was, let me recount this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, okay. Let's put 1 down into Berlin, and then the last one we're gonna place into South African Union. Okay. That will bring our total to 3 infantry there. All right. Let's do a recruitment roll for Mexico. That's going to be at a 4. The Mexican Revolution has come at a standstill. I mean, we haven't really been able to support Mexico much because we've been so busy focused on Europe because it's been such a struggle up there. All right, need a 4 or less. All right, got a free infantry. and we will place him into Western Mexico. All right, so we have a total of 5 infantry now in Western Mexico. Okay, we don't have any free diplomacy rolls. We gain 2 IPP for trade. This is what the diplomacy chart looks like. So we have Persia and Norway on our side. They're collecting trade. We're at stage 1 for the Netherlands and Mexico. Although Mexico can't be influenced. They're stuck at stage 1 until the Mexican Revolution is over. And then, of course, Chile and Argentina are already aligned to us. All right, we're sitting at 38 for IPP value. Here's the latest income chart. Here's the victory point chart. It's pretty close, actually. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, we're going to lose Belgium. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're going to have 9 at the end of this turn, most likely. The Allies have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty much tied, pretty much dead even. Now, the British are working on quite a few. They're working on Pacific security, which they will likely get. I'm sure they're going to get Mediterranean dominance. We got to do our best to prevent them from getting destruction of German Navy. And Africa, possession of at least 2 German colonies. I think at this point that might be kind of tough for them to get, but we'll see. And then once the Americans join, of course, they're going to add some most likely too. So I don't know. I mean, it's not looking too great for the Central Powers, but I mean, it's not over yet. It's still a very close game. So should be interesting to see how it unfolds, especially if the Russian Revolution happens really quickly. That will make things very interesting. All right, let's roll for our bonus income. Only 2. Oh, no. Oh, man. The game hates us. I've concluded that. It hates the Germans profoundly. All right, well, we get +2, and so that will put our income at 40. And we will have 40 in the bank. And that will be it for Germany. Next up will be Great Britain. As always, thanks so much for watching. Until next time, take it easy. Bye for now.